Audio Body Shop. Well, I'm here in Tucson, Arizona for FaffCon, and I'll be in Los Angeles for our show this coming Monday night, where we've got a great guest, Jon Bailey, who does all sorts of really great promotional and imaging and trailer stuff, and he's a riot.
Oh, yeah, we got to hang out with him while we were at the awesome voice conference a couple weeks ago, and I loved him. I'll have a Whittam's World on gain staging, so if you have more than one piece of gear between the mic and the computer, you're going to want to pay attention to this for sure. We're also going to celebrate June Foray's 97th birthday. Holy cow.
All that this Monday night, 9 o'clock in the East.
And 6 o'clock in the West.
And join us in the chat room. We'll see you there.
He's the home voiceover studio engineer to the stars in Los Angeles, California. A Virginia Tech grad whose knowledge of the latest recording gear is second to none. He's a voice actor and the home studio master, hailing from Buffalo, New York. His home studio skills and knowledge of voiceover recording is unmatched. When Dan and George talk shop, people listen, and the talk continues tonight. Welcome to East West Audio Body Shop. And now, live from his high-tech facility in Santa Monica and his penthouse studio in Buffalo, here are George Whittam and Dan Leonard.
Thank you, Dave Quavoisier, and thank you, America. Good evening, I'm Dan Leonard. I'm half asleep.
Here in the West with me, and I'm George Whittam in the West.
And together we are East West Audio Body Shop. Well, that's how we should sync it. We just need to be sitting next to each other.
I think, you know what, to be honest, I'm so used to us doing it over the net with a delay that now when we do it together, actually it's worse.
I know. You know,
together or worse? Is that our?
We're gonna have to practice that.
Yeah, exactly, because we're gonna be together a lot more in the next year.
Next year, yeah.
Cheers to that. Moving to California.
Yeah, boy, did I have a day today.
Indeed.
Can I explain what I did today to? Some people know because they've been hearing this story over and over again while we were at FaffCon. But
give us the quick version.
Yeah, the quick version. Okay, so I some people know I bought a house in Sherman Oaks, and we're going to be moving out there next summer. But we closed down the house while I was at FaffCon. Right. So today, my wife is like, "Well, look, you're going to be in Tucson. You might as well just go to Los Angeles and take care of all the things that have to happen there." So today,
might as well.
Yeah. So we did not go to bed last night. So I've been up since Saturday morning. Since Sunday morning.
Okay.
Today's Monday afternoon, right? All right, it's starting to show. So I was up all night last night. Had to take the 3:35 shuttle from this wonderful hotel at FaffCon to the Tucson airport, which is in Yugoslavia, I think. It's just on the other side of the world. And actually was able to hang out with Steve Cunningham, which was kind of cool.
Oh, nice.
We had the same flight back to Los Angeles, but landed in Los Angeles at 8 o'clock. Rented a car. Had to be at my new home in Sherman Oaks at 9 o'clock to meet the real estate agent who had the keys to the house.
Right.
And of course I had to beat the traffic on the 405 and got there about 9:30. Met the real estate agent. Got the keys. Talked to the architect and the contractors. We went through some of the changes we want to make to the house. Then the locksmith showed up, had to change all the locks on the house. Then the plumber showed up. He had to route out the sewer. Then I had to wait for the gardener. While I was waiting for the gardener, I met the new neighbor who's a great guy named Albert. This is going to be great. And then I talked to the gardener, Raul, who I love. I didn't understand a word he said, but I know he's going to make the garden work great.
Yeah.
And then I got on the 405 and headed over here, and here I am.
In LA, I almost don't trust I almost don't trust the gardener unless he doesn't speak great English.
I know. Well, this guy will never be governor, but he can be governor of my gardens.
Governor.
Anyway, so we're gonna have a great time tonight.
Yeah. Glad you made it, man.
Yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about FaffCon, have some video from there. June Foray is 97. We're gonna celebrate that.
Yeah,
that's big time stuff.
Happy birthday, June!
Absolutely.
Holy cow!
And we've got a great Whittam's World on gain staging. So, but the big part of our show tonight, aside from all that fantastic stuff, we have a fantastic guest by the name of Jon Bailey, who is hilarious. He is a funny guy.
Yes,
he is a great ad-libber. He is just fun to hang around with.
Yeah.
And we'll learn more about him a little bit later on.
And he's my new Facebook friend.
Yes. And he's giving us a hand.
That's right.
Anyway, let's talk a little bit about FaffCon.
Yeah, man.
Just all we have to do
Totally
is
worth the trip, right?
we'll roll some of that beautiful bean footage and explain what was going on there. I mean, some of it's somewhat self-explanatory, and I'll talk a little bit.
You
want
want to talk over top of it while we watch it?
If we can.
All right. I think I can do that by pressing a couple of magic buttons. One of the things I have to do is add another layer of audio to this thing, and then we will solo this so that we don't send it over the air, and everybody hears a double layer. Okay. And cross your fingers.
To 30 degrees cooler inside the saguaro. So it's kind of isolated from the heat.
This is Raimundo. He is our guide on the grounds of this hotel. Were just magnificent, as you can see. These majestic mountains behind us. Pat Sweeney and I flew into a hurricane. Southwest. That doesn't matter. Anyway, we were. And then after the tour, the chef, who was amazing, showed us how he makes salads and stuff like that using cactus. There's an abundance of cactus in Tucson. But the salad he made for us while we were all hanging out there was really good.
Oh, awesome!
And the food there was really, really good. As you can see, we were enjoying it as well. And then things got going, and there were 124 of us in there. And it was just one great moment after another. Of course, they said, go sit next to somebody you don't know. And I'm like...
Is that even possible?
At FaffCon? No. And there's Sean Caldwell reading for a class we had with Mary and Listener. And then we gave money to this amazing organization called Words with Wings. It teaches kids who have speech problems how to speak, and we raised $5,500 for them.
How much?
$5,500.
Wow.
There's Bob Sauer and Amy and
the clapping's really loud right now. So.
Yes.
Brad, what was your golden nugget this week?
Well, I guess that
golden nuggets.
I finally realized that I need somebody else to do my demo.
Your golden nugget this week?
So many good ones. I found out that you could ad-lib on auditions, and it was a really good way to up your booking rate.
Huh.
Oh, I know. I don't. Not on the. No.
Jen Leonard is my golden nugget.
I don't know.
Away they go.
But it all ended with a magnificent sunset, and we were on the roof of this building.
I saw photos of that.
It was just amazing.
Unbelievable. Is there 40 seconds of black on the end here so we can come back to us?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I don't know why there would be 40 seconds of black there, but
yeah.
I was only editing it in your living room.
I know. Hang on, let me get back to our shot.
And half asleep.
So everybody can see us.
Okay, anyway.
Yeah, I know. Great job slapping that together because you're not running on too many hours of sleep.
I am on fumes, but FaffCon this time was the best FaffCon ever, and all the other ones were fabulous. So
everyone's the best one ever, it seems like.
Well, this one was the best. The facility was great. Amy, by the way, looks great and is healthy and energetic and just ran this thing like a watch. And
she's really got it down.
She really does. And of course, and Lauren, her wonderful assistant, who did a great job of actually, according to Amy, running the ship. And great people there, just the best. A lot of folks who we know and watch the show.
Yeah.
And I had a great time with you guys. And of course, I never got anywhere because every 5 feet I would someone say, "Dan, I got a question about Twisted Wave." It was,
yeah, exactly.
But I did get double golden nuggeted by people.
Double golden nuggeted.
Showed them the trick with using the markers to separate files in Twisted Wave. And apparently it was a big hit.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, you're 1 click for this, 2 clicks for this.
Right. Well, no, putting the markers there and then splitting the files by the markers.
Oh, yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. Oh, that's a huge time
doing e-learning and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely.
Shut, man.
So we had a great time. Thanks, everybody. FaffCon, go when you get a chance.
I know. I really want to be there next time. I really want to be there. Yeah. Well, is there going to be a next time?
Yes, we just don't know where.
They keep it a secret.
They used to announce it at lunch on Sunday, but now Amy is like, "Why am I telling you?" because she doesn't really know.
She may not know. I mean, yeah, keeping these produced a year in advance each year has got to be a humongous.
It is. And there's actually going to be two more. Two more FAFCONs.
So getting into the next one is going to be even harder.
You darn well better be there.
Yeah. Good luck.
All right. Well, Jon Bailey will be joining us in a little bit, and we've got Whittam's World coming up, and we've got more fun than you can shake a stick at if that's your idea of a good time. Anyway, we'll be right back here at East West Audio Body Shop, so do not go away.
Hey guys, this is Tom, also known as the voice of SpongeBob SquarePants, and you want to fill your ear holes and your eye holes with Dan and George and the East West Audio Body Shop. Ah! Meow! Snails like it too.
I'm going to keep using that one as long as I can possibly get away with it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we haven't heard from his agent or from SAG after any
or from the network.
Right, so we'll just keep using it. Anyway, I have talked my face off for the last 10 minutes or so, and I think it's your turn because people want to hear about gain staging.
I hope so. Well, if you have a super simple studio with one mic with a USB jack, maybe this isn't for you, but for everybody else, this could be helpful. This is all about how to set up equipment when you've got a mic, a preamp, a mixer, a Scarlett 2i2, and you got to get all these things working together. Hopefully this little video package will help you with that. So here you go. And no, you don't, because it's not queued up because I lost it when I changed projects and I have to go grab it again.
Just drag it in.
I'll riff a little bit more. But Dan, I mean, you've simplified your studio over the years, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Did you used to use more than one piece of gear in your signal chain?
You know, I had a mixer many years ago, and then it just occurred to me, why do I need a mixer? Because I think some people like to have the crutch of a mixer because they maybe are used to riding the gain while they were talking. You don't have to do that. As long as you set your levels right in the first place, just set it and forget it and move on and not worry about being on the radio. You don't want to concentrate on the technology while you're reading.
Right, exactly.
And I think that's one of the things a mixer does. Now, as we're doing, East West Audio Body Shop, you've got a mixer because we have multiple sources. When you're on one microphone and one voice, that's the only source you got to worry about.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're not having to mix much here, but this comes even with the most basic setups where there's some because sometimes people end up buying a preamp and then they'll have a Scarlett 2i2 or some audio interface. You've got sometimes at least 2 or 3 knobs to adjust the levels. So where should you set them? How hot or how quiet should each of them be?
Which reminds me, there was a question that was brought up at FaffCon about how do you route the audio in IPDiddle and Source Connect. So maybe we can tackle that one a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I also have a question in the wings from Joe Cipriano that came in today about finding alternative internet providers when you're in the fringes and you can't get good internet. So
on Wilshire Boulevard.
Actually on Sunset Boulevard. Yeah. So we'll get to that in a minute.
Hey guys, this is Tom, also known as the voice of SpongeBob SquarePants, and
Hi, this is George Whittam reporting for Whittam's World. Well, it's been a busy couple of weeks. Sorry I've been gone for a little while, but boy, there's been a lot of computer issues lately, and I've been dealing with a lot of emergency and support problems lately. Well, this topic comes in from Dan Harder, and it's a good one. He said, here's a topic that might help some folks experiencing noise in their audio chain. When I was in audio school, we called it gain staging. That is, having each stage of the audio chain applying the proper amount of gain and working in the design center of a particular stage of amplification and not making one stage do all the work. Example, I've discovered that my Mackie 802 VLZ3 preamps add more noise than my Vorsys M1. So I'm running a little hotter out of the M1 and have the gain, using line-in of course, on my Mackie channel turned down. Other examples of gain staging might be how much preamp gain is your interface using compared to the output gain. It's possible to get 50 decibels of gain with numerous combinations of input and output, but what is right for noise floor and driving the processing, if any, in the channel strip? Maybe this will spur other topics and questions as well. Thanks for what you do. Well, thank you for this question, because this is a doozy. So I'm going to try to answer it without going down the rabbit hole too far and be a little, try to be concise about my response on this one. But this is a common issue for anybody that has more than one piece of equipment in their signal chain. So those of you that have opted to go the simple route and either one have just a USB microphone that already contains all of the preamp circuit, the analog digital converter, all that stuff is inside the mic. There's no gain staging to worry about because all of it's done internally. So it's totally idiot proof, quote unquote. You just set the gain correctly and you're done. Now, those of you using a microphone, a condenser mic like this one, that goes into an audio interface, such as one of our favorites, the Scarlett 2i2, you really have no gain staging issues to deal with either, because your microphone goes directly into the preamp, and there are no other places to change or adjust levels. So in those situations, gain staging is a non-issue. You have one knob to turn. Either it's a dial on the mic or a knob on your audio interface. Turn it up and down to set your gain. You're done. This is only going to apply to everybody else that is using a more complicated setup, which is probably a much smaller bit of you. So if this doesn't apply to you, just wait till next week or go back and look at some of the other videos in the library. But this is regarding having more equipment in the chain. In general, what he's referring to as gain staging is how much gain or volume boost is added to the signal as it travels all the way through your equipment. From microphone to mic preamp, from preamp to, say, compressor, if you have one, from compressor to a mixing console, if you have one, from mixer out back to an audio interface. All of those different stages of the signal travels through all these different stages of gain, and each one of them adds or removes some signal along the way. And in the process of doing so, can add noise as well. In the case of Dan's setup, where he's using what I think is one of the most amazing mic preamp processors available today, the Vorsys M1, and he's running that into a Mackie 802. And what he didn't tell me is what the Mackie 802 is feeding into after that. So for the sake of argument in this case, or for training, let's just say it's feeding into a Scarlett 2i2. Okay? And I'll show you pictures of these and explain them as I go. So what the rule of thumb here really is that you generally want most of the gain to occur at the front end. So that would be the mic and the mic preamp. That's where most of the gain should be added to the signal, because generally that's where the cleanest gain is going to be available. The mic preamp should technically have the cleanest gain and the best quality gain, because that's usually your best quality piece of equipment in the chain. And so generally I will say add most of the gain at the preamp stage. So in the case of the Vorsys, that device has an input and an output. So we're just talking about the input gain right now. So you'd want to set the input gain so that you're getting the most out of the preamp. And so that usually means, if the preamp has a meter, you should be somewhere between -12 and -6 dB or something. But generally, I usually go for that rule of thumb of hitting my meters close to zero if it has a full range VU meter that goes up to, say, +20. And if it tops out at 0, then I want my meters to be around -12 to -6. And I'll set my gain that way accordingly. So once I have a hot level of gain, I'll set my processing settings if I'm going to use anything, such as downward expansion, compression, things like that. And then I'll have access to my output. On most preamps, there's an output and an input gain. Not all. Some of them just have a gain knob and that's it. But, if you're using a Vorsys and a Mackie mixer and a Scarlett 2i2 in your signal chain, you're going to have up to 5 or 6 places to adjust the gain. So let's keep moving down the line. So the output on the Vorsys, I generally will leave at 0. And that's because there's a calibration where you can go below 0 and above 0. I'll usually leave it at 0, which is right about a 3 o'clock position. And the reason for that is another term that Dan mentioned in his audio school days called design center of the stage of preamplification. That just basically means that there's a certain setting where the equipment will work the most optimally and really produce the least amount of noise. So that's generally going to be when the output is set to 0. So unless I have trouble somewhere else down the chain, I will usually set my mic preamp output to as close to that 0 unity or, optimal output setting that is specified by the manufacturer. From there, going into the Mackie mixer, for example, the Mackie has another gain control. There's a little dial for controlling the gain. Even when you're using an output of a mic preamp into a Mackie mixer, you are actually still going through the Mackie mixer's mic preamp. So it's very important to set its gain to the optimal setting to get the lowest amount of noise. Well, the Mackie's gain control has a little U printed right next to the knob, indicating where that unity or design center of the mic preamp actually is. So if you set it to that U setting, which is right about 10 o'clock or so, you theoretically should have the least amount of noise, and it should then be set up to take this output from the preamp with, the most optimal gain staging. Sometimes I may find myself running the gain on the Mackie a little bit lower. Maybe 9 o'clock works better. Maybe 8 o'clock works better. You just have to experiment to see how high you can set the output on the preamp without overdriving the input stage of the Mackie mixer's preamps, okay? If you put too much output at the Vorsys or at the preamp, and the input on the Mackie can't handle the signal level or the voltage, it's going to distort. So there's a certain point where you find a balance point where it's going to work the best. But I usually start with that little gain on the Mackie at U. Well, then the signal is going to travel down through the channel strip and make sure all the equalizer knobs are centered or just at the center detent position so they're not boosting or cutting EQ on any bands. And at the bottom, we have a fader control. It's either a slider or a knob, depending on which Mackie mixer you're using. In this case, it's a knob on the V802. I want to make sure my fader is optimally set at unity or 12 o'clock position. Again, that's the design center, and that's where the equipment works the most optimally with the least amount of noise. From that point, assuming now I'm going to be using the main outputs of the mixer to feed my audio interface, I'm going to also set the main mix's output to 12 o'clock as well. So there's another knob on there for main mix. I'm going to leave that at 12 o'clock if at all possible. And if it's done right with even a Mackie mixer, it's extremely low noise. Then the output of the mixer has to feed your audio interface. Depending on which interface you're using, almost all of the USB devices have their own mic preamps built in that can't be bypassed. So if you're going to, say, a Scarlett 2i2, even if you go into the little 1/4-inch jacks on the front, you're still going through the mic preamp. So again, you want to be really careful how you set the inputs on your audio device. A lot of these pieces of gear, they don't really specify where the unity gain setting is on the inputs. So it's a lot more trial and error in this case. It's going to almost always be somewhere between like 8, 9 o'clock and maybe 10, 11 o'clock. Somewhere in that range where you set the gain knob is where you're going to get the closest to a unity setting. You might find you can set the gain knob on your audio interface to its minimum all the way down as far as it'll go. and you'll be able to drive that input. But you have to be careful because some devices just can't handle that much output and could clip. So depending on your setup, you might find you have to run the output of your preamp or your mixer a little lower to compensate. Every piece of equipment is different. Again, you got to use your ears and do a little experimenting, but that's the rule of thumb. So basically, you want the most gain at the front, the least amount of gain at the back end, and you want everything along the way to be as close to that design center or unity setting as possible. So I always start with my levels on my mixers set at unity, not full volume, not halfway down, but at that unity setting to get the best possible results. And then if I need to make minor adjustments on the fly, I'll be able to do that. That's what the fader's for. If I'm in the middle of a session doing ISDN and the studio says we need more level, I'll just turn my level up a little bit more and give them what they want. And when I'm done, center it back to unity for the best sound quality. So there you have it. That's a long description, but it's not a simple subject, and I hope I was able to boil it down to the basics here that you guys could understand in conjunction with the little graphics I was able to throw on screen for you, hopefully. If you have a question, and we've got a lot of them in the queue, so I'm going to be. Well, if you're watching the show, you guys know how to get a hold of me by this point, so I don't need to run that whole segment at the end there. But yeah, be really careful about how you set up the gain staging because it makes a tremendous difference in the end results. I get samples where people's noise floor is really high, and sometimes it's just hiss, nothing else. It's just equipment hiss because this knob's too high and this knob's too low. And so set it up correctly, and it will make a tremendous difference in your home studio.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Keep as many analog things in your chain as doorstops.
Yeah. If you don't need all that extra analog gear, just you can keep it in your rack if you like a fancy rack.
I know I do.
I like a fancy. Okay, sorry. I fancy a rack. But yeah, it's a lot more practical and reliable to have less gear in the chain. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
When did I look rough? My dad just said I looked rough, George. Oh, I look good tonight? Okay, good. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, I'm the one that looks rough.
Rode hard and put away wet.
Yeah. I mean, I literally, I think we have some toothpicks holding my eyes open. And,
yeah.
But anyway, well, we've got a great segment coming up with a great guy who's just, he does voices like nobody I've ever heard.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe along the lines of Larry Davis, only I think he has a greater variety of stuff. And he's just a witty guy. And you want to have fun. You thought this first half hour was fun? Jon Bailey will be joining us in just a minute, so don't go away. More coming up here on East West Audio Body Shop.
VO Studio Tech. Recording made simple.
Hi, I'm Peter McHugh.
This is Jim Tasker from Los Angeles, California.
Hi, this is Bill Ratner in Los Angeles.
Hi, this is Scott Rummel here in Yorba Linda, California.
Hi, my name is Rick Wasserman.
Hi, this is Tom Kane.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Marshall.
Hi, my name is Zurich.
Hi, I'm Mary McKittrick.
Randy Thomas chiming in.
Hi, this is Joe Szymanski.
Hey, this is Rick Robles.
Hi, my name is John Patrick Armstrong.
I was turned on to George by none other than Don LaFontaine, who always swore by his help.
George is absolutely awesome.
ISDN, Source Connect, Phone Patch, FTP, you name it, George has set it up.
It's really the best thing I've ever done for myself. I feel free, safe, fearless, like anything is possible in here.
Unless you like to look for opportunities to waste time, call George.
And he did all of that, long distance over the phone and the internet.
I'm very happy with George, and I cherish him.
Thanks, George. You make it easy.
Whence came these two radiant celestial brothers united for an instant as they crossed the stratosphere of our starry window? One from the east and one from the west.
Very good.
And we're back.
Yes, we are.
We are back here at East West Audio Body Shop. And why don't we welcome a guy we've wanted to have on the show since we really had a chance to get to know him better at Voice 2014. Joining us from Memphis, Tennessee, Jon Bailey.
Wait, John, you're off camera. Where are you?
Do that. Wait for the elevator to come. Hang on, I got to take the stairs.
Take two. Jon Bailey. There he is.
Welcome, John.
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah, no, you're a busy guy, aren't you?
Yeah. I'm so busy. I'm
He has
here.
time to be on this show.
Our show. That's sort of a moot question, I think. You're
know.
busy, aren't you, John?
Nah.
Why don't you hang out with us for a
All right, well,
couple
thanks for
hours?
having me. See you
Good
later.
night, everybody.
Gotta go.
So now you specialize in a lot of cool stuff, but why don't we just start off from the question that we always ask every amazing celebrity that comes on this show: how did you get started in voiceover?
Before time began, there was Jon Bailey's voice.
No, I started doing voice stuff when I was 4, I guess it was, imitating Grover and Mr. Rogers. And I heard Peter Cullen's voice, who does Optimus Prime, when I was a kid, but he was narrating the 80s cartoon Voltron. He's the one that did
Voltron, Defender of the Universe.
And I was like, oh, that's cool. I would be doing that one day. And then I started getting interested in the cartoon character voices and starting to pay attention to who they were. And later on in my teenage years, my brother Craig started looking up stuff for ODP, which was a subsidiary of Google, compiling information for voice actors, because back then there wasn't a lot of information on voice actors. Not everybody had a website.
Yeah.
So he started putting together who did who Jack Angel voiced, who did Peter Cullen voiced, who Frank Welker voiced. So some of the information you find now is actually thanks to him, all the hard work he did back then. So I started listening to Pat Fraley's creating characters on cassette tapes. And memorized those as a teenager.
Yeah.
And it's just and then when I was married, my wife made me a MySpace page, which is the social networking thing before Facebook was famous. And I told her that social networking was a joke, it would never work, which is why I lost all my money when I didn't invest in Facebook. And they had advertisements that popped up based on your interests. And she knew that I was interested in voice actors and voice acting. And there was a local non-union studio that actually had a chain nationwide, but they had a location close to Memphis where I live. And I was like, wow, that's driving distance. It's only a few minutes away from here. And she's like, well, it says they're looking for talent. I'm like, She's like, well, the worst they can do is say no. And that's the single best piece of advice that I've ever gotten. And I went down there and blew them away. And next thing I know, they were offering me a contract. And they signed me that January of 2009, I believe it was. And February 1st, they sent me my first audition. By February 11th, I'd already booked my first job.
Wow, that's meteoric.
So you're saying that goofing off got you started in voiceover, in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
If only I'd known about the voiceover world, because I liked goofing off as a kid, with a tape recorder and imitating voices. Yeah,
it was a way of getting out of trouble and getting not beat up in school, because if I could make them laugh, then they would leave me alone. But
Right.
That's true. Or they would still beat you up and say, "You gonna say that again?
Yeah,
say that again,
too.
funny."
Yeah, that happened whenever I found out that they didn't realize that imitation was the highest form of flattery when I imitated their voices.
Yeah. So, what sort of genres of material you do? I know you do trailers and stuff like that.
Oh well, I had a bucket list back when I first started, and I was shocked at how quickly I started just marking them off the list. I'd always wanted to work on a Star Wars project. Within my first few months doing voiceover for that studio back then, that non-union thing, I got to voice 4 different Star Wars toys, and I voiced the toy campaign for the Clone Wars, which ran for about a year, I think.
Oh yeah,
a little over a year and a half. So I got to do Captain Rex. So thank you, D. Bradley Baker, for being in the union. And
so you were cleaning up the non-union scraps.
Yeah, and I'd always wanted to be the voice of a toy. That marked off that thing off the list too. And then I wanted to do commercial voiceover for radio, and I just started marking them off one at a time. And then when my full-time job at the time, I was driving a forklift. It went bankrupt when the economy crashed, and my wife said, "Well, what are we going to do now?" I was like, "Well, we could try doing voices full-time, because I'd only auditioned during the morning." And I screwed around a little bit on YouTube, and I did all my favorite movie trailer guys. At the time, it was Peter Cullen, Don LaFontaine, Hal Douglas, Bo Weaver, and Mark Elliott. And my manager at the time was looking, after Don passed away, he was looking for somebody who could do something like that. And he was like, well, I was not only impressed with what you could do, but the fact that you even knew who these guys are. Nobody knows that stuff. And he offered me a deal. And next thing you know, I was doing real movie trailers. And then I moved on to trailers, and I did promo. I did an audiobook. Any job you can possibly think. I did narration for a documentary, and then I was moved from that manager to a new manager because felt like I would do better with her. So I moved up with Cope Management, who represents Tom Kane and Bo Weaver and Jim Tasker, all these huge people, and got me signed with CESD, who represents all my favorite voice actors, plus a few, and they got me into ADR, which it's doing it from here is very, very simple. All I have to do is voice match for whoever they need to replace or add dialogue for, and get paid quite handsomely for it.
Yeah, and we've talked about ADR on the show before. I mean, it's something that you have to have a talent for, and there is a demand for it, but it's not easy to do, is it?
It's such a niche job. I didn't know it existed. In fact, somebody that everybody here would know told me that I'd never get it anywhere in this business doing impressions. Well, if you can do really, really good impressions, oh yes, you can.
So a voice match. How does a voice match differ from an impression, really?
Well, I have friends that are stand-up comics, and when I listen to them doing their impressions, I notice that they do an exaggerated version. It's like a caricature you would get done of yourself.
Caricature almost, yeah.
Yeah. If you go to the fair, they would draw this elaborate version of you. It'd be funny. Like, I see that's him, but it's this exaggerated version. Whereas somebody that's actually, full-fledged artist would paint you just exactly as you look. So that's the difference between a voice match and, so when somebody asks me for an example, I always tell them, well, when a stand-up comedian does Arnold Schwarzenegger, they do the over-the-top Arnold Schwarzenegger to make people laugh. It's funny, but when you do it in the movies, you have to sound just like him, the way he talks. So they can't tell the difference when they're watching whatever it is that I'm replacing him for, that his voice has been switched out with somebody else.
And it's significant to mention that you're in Memphis, Tennessee. You're not in Hollywood.
No, I don't.
So how do you do your sessions?
I travel back and forth mostly, but everything I do mostly from here. Very rarely I book something big like a video game that I did. There's a big game called XCOM, that multi-award winner. They've done 3 or 4 different games now that I've been in, and they'd actually had a specific studio out there that they wanted me to record at, so they sent me over there to record. But usually everything's done from here, and I have an ISDN a bridge here, but there's also an ISDN studio not too far from here as well. So if I needed to use ISDN, but everything else I use Skype for as a phone patch. Nobody knows the difference.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite voices that you do that you get total joy out of of shocking people that you do it?
The one that people usually get thrown back by is Optimus Prime's voice, because there's so many Transformers fans out there thanks to the new Michael Bay movies, and when they hear it, even Rob Paulson, who everybody here should know, he was doing Talking Tunes, and he was doing a Transformers reunion with some of the Transformers voice actors from the 80s, and my friend James is his producer, and he's like, dude, would you mind doing an Optimus Prime intro for this thing? So I'm like, yeah, sure. So I was
30 years we have watched your species.
And Rob was like, how the did you get Peter Cullen? And when James told him it was me, he's like, that's Jon Bailey? No way. Which that was a huge compliment to me, because I do that voice all around just messing around, and people ask me to do voicemails and whatnot. But yeah, and I did a little bit of scratch for him for Transformers 4. Of course, they booked him over me, but it was cool just to greet his scratch lines was pretty awesome. Oddly enough, I get asked to do Jeff Bridges a lot for trailers.
Huh.
And it was one of those where I kind of reverse engineered it from Frank Caliendo doing John Madden and ended up with Jeff Bridges.
So if you take Frank Caliendo, you got John Madden, and here's a guy who wants to go to the east and a guy who wants to go to the west. Boom, they got EWABS right there. You take that, you get a little bit of a southern accent, and hey, look at there, I'm an RIPD. How about that? And then you get Jeff Bridges from there.
Yeah, usually it's a combination of things. Dana Carvey always talking about how he would do Mr. Rogers and John Wayne and end up doing George Bush #1.
Yeah, it's weird where I came to it, because sometimes I'll not even know who it is. After hearing them, I'll recognize the voice, but I won't necessarily know who it is. They'll send me a reference, and then I'll look it up later, because everything is always ASAP. You have to be available 24/7. I'm literally chained at the studio.
Right. Yeah.
And so I'll look them up later and like, oh, I know who that guy was. But sometimes I have the reference. I have to listen to it a couple of times, and then I just do my best voice match, and I look for that little tiny hook that makes me sound like them well enough to replace them. And there's been a few that's even surprised me that I did recently. I did George Lopez. I think I do terrible at George Lopez. And they're like, actually, that was pretty good. well, I don't remember what the movie was about, but it was about something. Whoop! I don't.
That's instantly recognizable. Don't sell yourself short on that one. Obviously, you.
Well,
didn't.
see, I'm a perfectionist, so if it doesn't sound 100% right, I feel like I didn't do it justice.
Right.
But there's some that I feel like I do really well, and there's others like Harrison Ford that I've booked before and didn't think I did a good job. But come to find out, Harrison Ford was inebriated in more ways than one when he came in to record. So he didn't do any acting when he did his read. So they hired me instead. I'm betting I didn't get paid what he would have gotten paid.
No. When we were hanging out at Voice 2014, it seemed that W was with us most of the time. It just seems like you like.
I had to bring a little bit of the South with me because I'm from Texas and South America. So.
That's talent.
And when I did that joke for my grandmother, I think I almost killed her that day. She was 93 at the time, and it was one of those things where 5 seconds after I said it, it clicked about Texas and South America, and she just couldn't quit laughing. Her little shoulders were bouncing up and down.
So I mean, how has the ability to do the improv, this off the cuff stuff, how do you think that's helped you?
Actually, I work with if anybody knows Rebecca Michaels Hall. She does this thing, and she's the leader of the group, and I'm one of her sub coaches. We do this. I love that improv, and a lot of people don't realize they're like, I love doing this, but I'm not sure exactly how this directly applies to voiceover. And I'm like, you have no idea how many times you go in a studio thinking it's going to be one way, or they send you a script saying, be ready for this. And then they'll throw you a complete curveball and you'll be just, so it's better to be prepared and have the engine running. And that way you can just come up with something off the top of your head, because I've had people completely change the direction. I've had them change the script, the character, pitch, tempo, all kinds of just odd things that they've thrown my way. And sometimes they're just like, well, what do you think? And they'll end up liking my take better. And I'll just throw one out there. I did a session for Anchorman 2, and they're like, you seem to be really good at improv. Would you mind just doing what Will would do? Just do like a little line-orama. So it was just me and the producer, and I just started going through a run of, I think it was the part where he gets in a fight with the dolphin. So I just did a whole run of, I'm going to punch you in the blowhole. If you were a boy, I would punch you in the balls. And after they came back on, I did about 10 or 15 in a row. When I came back on, it was a whole group of people all laughing. I'm like, hello, did I lose the connection? He's like, oh, I'm sorry. The people in the hallway heard you, and they all came in to listen. Everybody was just laughing so much, I just didn't want to stop you.
That's a pretty good sign.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you more of a professional type of question. I mean, we still have fun with it though. One of the things that was brought up at FaffCon this week that I think everybody just grabbed onto and was Marilyn Wisner said, ad-lib your auditions. And I'll bet that's something that you just aim at doing, and you look at a script and go, well...
That's one of those secrets that I don't usually share with people, but yeah, I usually give them 3 takes, and this is some people are just, they have no idea that they can do more than one. Nobody ever told them. And I'll do the first one the way it's written out, with the reference and with the script and everything, exactly the way I think that they want it done. The second, I just kind of go with my gut instinct. And the third one, I'll go completely off the wall. I'll change the script around. I'll do something that's not even remotely close to the script or the reference or whatever they described. And I'm surprised, not only the fact that I booked some from that, but the fact that somebody's like, he might not be good for this one, but I guarantee he'd be good for this other one. And they'll call me back for something later on.
Absolutely. Now you've got a YouTube channel too, right?
Well, I started YouTube, which has led to a lot of big breaks, and I've been surprised. And when I do introductory coaching for really basic stuff, because there's a lot of stuff in this business. If you've gone to any voiceover conferences, you've run into a few of these problems. But there's a lot of things I try to warn people about ahead of time before they, find out about it the hard way. Yeah. And so I started this little stuff on YouTube, and it's led to so many different jobs, and it led to me voicing the Honest Trailers, which has become this big pop culture thing. And a lot of actual paid work where people found me, they ended up looking me up and say, oh, wow, he does this for real. And there's a music video called the Black Keys Howlin' For You music video. And it looks like a movie trailer. It was played during the Grammys. And that was just a job that somebody found me through YouTube. And next thing you know, she's howling for revenge. She's howling for you. And it was it's got, 30, 40 million views or whatever. And I'm shocked at, so I'm all for putting as many hooks in the water as you can, because if you got 20 fishing hooks rather than one, you catch a lot more fish.
Really?
So the YouTube thing, I started doing some voiceover tutorial stuff, real basic, free information for anybody to watch that wants to watch. And then I do other things that based on the public persona that I have doing the epic movie voice.
Right.
So
you've created sort of you're someone who would normally not be famous, but because of the world of YouTube.
Well, gee, thanks.
No.
Wow, George.
you wouldn't. I mean, think about it. Think about Don LaFontaine. Nobody knew who the heck that guy was. The first day I met Don, I walked into his house, and they said, "You got to help Don with it." It was his engineer that he worked with all the time. He's like, "You got to go help Don. He's got problems with buzz on his mic, all this stuff." And I was like, "Who's Don LaFontaine?" He's like, "Oh, you'll know when you meet him." And I was like, "Okay." Met him at the door. Still didn't know who this guy was. Looked at his house. Goes, "Oh, he seems to be doing pretty well in voiceover. Holy smokes!" Went down to his studio and he said, "Oh, just a minute. I got to jump into the booth and do a spot for something." And he jumps in there and he does The Simpsons or some kind of spot. And I was like, "Whoa!" Talk about mind blown. I was like, "This is this guy." So I mean, he was the ultimate, and still people aren't going to know who it is. So you're really leveraging this YouTube thing and your talent.
Yeah, well, that's if you think about it, that's how my first manager found me. That's how Zurich from VoiceOver Universe found me. It's just one of those things where people look. There's even been a few people hired on Saturday Night Live or other shows like it, or Comedy Central or whatever. People have their own shows on on network television because they did YouTube, and it struck a chord with somebody, and next thing you know, there you go.
All right.
Somebody asked me what my favorite Honest trailer was in the chat. That's an impossible question. That's like asking who my favorite kid is without getting in trouble. So there's a few that I actually really do like. Pacific Rim is one of my favorites. But the old ones we do, that we make fun of movies from the 80s, like Top Gun or Jurassic Park, those are especially fun for me. Superman 4, stuff like that.
Fascinating. This is great stuff. All right, now I'm going to take a risk here. You know Harlan Hogan?
Wasn't he the wrestler in the 80s?
Yes, no, that was Hulk Hogan.
Oh, okay. It sounds familiar, but
okay, all right. Well, if you don't know Harlan Hogan, you can't sound like Harlan Hogan because nobody.
I'd have
sounds
to
like
do
him.
this thing. There's this thing called Google.
Yeah, check it out while we're doing this. We need to talk about one of our sponsors, a guy who has been with us since the beginning and will be with us again for at least another year. Because he knows that we like his products and we want our audience to like his products.
That's right.
Harlan Hogan has VoiceOver Essentials. If you go over to voiceoveressentials.com, you'll see that, well, right now they're introducing the mixer face. We've been talking about it. He's been talking about it. And I guess it's actually almost there.
It's one of those things where you guys, this is not like a massive production line like Focusrite or Sony, where there's a huge department doing R&D and testing and all this stuff. But this company, Centrance, that makes the mixer face, is a small company based out of the Chicago area, and they found a demand for a portable device that you could use with an iPhone. Harlan knows the guys. He's become good friends with them over the years, and he's trying to help them launch this new product, the mixer face. And it's going to be coming out soon. We say soon because he's been revising it. They've been debugging it, coming up with better ways to make it work, and really trying to improve the reliability of this product. So,
and because what does it do that's so amazing that everybody should run out and buy one as soon as it lands on the shelves?
This is definitely going to be something you want if you're a traveling road warrior voice actor and you have an iPhone. And you want to travel as light as humanly possible, would be the thing you want. I mean, it works with any computer as well, but the thing is it works natively with an iPod or an iPad or an iPhone and plugs in and gives you super high-quality mic preamps, a high-quality headphone amp, all those bells and whistles in one portable unit. It's self-powered. It has a battery inside, which makes it kind of unusual. And it's a really interesting device. Is it for everybody? I don't know if it's for everybody, but if you're someone that travels a lot,
right,
and wants a great portable device, this is probably something you want to look at.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people this week talking about how you know my attitude about recording on the road. But if you're making a good living and you like to travel, a lot of people have been talking about how they're doing auditions with their iPhone.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's like just using the iPhone and
using the iPhone mic.
Stuff, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Use something like this with the 416 or the mic of your choice in a good place.
Mm-hmm.
and you're golden because there's not going to be any chance of some major glitch in there. So
yeah, exactly. It's a good combination, but
yeah. So he's got them. I guess you can pre-order them now.
Yeah, you can
at voiceoveressentials.com.
That's right.
They've got all the best stuff. This certainly fits into the category of great stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and
go
then
on over there.
Dan's wearing a product that is one of his great products of his own design. This is one of Harlan's own products, the VoiceOver Essentials VOH headphones, voice optimized headphones.
And there they are.
They're very, very sensitive. They have a great amount of volume. If you're plugging them into an interface like what is it? The Fast Track is one of them that I know for sure. A few of them that don't have much headphone output, they're really weak. These things will give you massive amounts of volume, clean,
right?
And
it
they're
makes
super
you sound like you.
Yeah, they're very, very natural sounding, and they're very comfortable.
Yeah. Now, John would have a problem with that because he doesn't want to sound like him. He wants to sound like everybody else.
John, you were gesturing earlier. Do you have to record while you're traveling from time to time?
Headphones. My name is Optimized Headphones.
Yeah, I actually do. I did the same thing. I record on my iPhone with Twisted Wave and an Apogee mic, and
the Apogee mic. Yeah,
I'm shocked at how much I book on the road.
Yeah,
I did a J.K. Simmons ADR for Jobs.
I
was done.
Okay,
I did that from my hotel room.
Nice. You did. You got cut off for a second. J.K. Simmons. What was?
J.K. Simmons for the Jobs movie.
Oh,
and, all I had to
right.
say was Steve Jobs no longer works at Apple, and I was done. That from a hotel room and an iPhone.
Wow.
What's the Here's the question. What's the longest voice match you've had to do? Not just like two words, but have you had to do like several?
Oh yeah,
scenes
I had to do an entire intro for what movie was that? The Seventh Son, I think it was. It's a new Jeff Bridges movie that never did come out yet. I don't know if it's on its way out or not.
Yeah.
But one of the scratch reads was a very, very long. It was 3 pages long of alts and main lines, and basically him explaining the entire movie. And I was like, "Wow, this is really long."
But it wasn't in sync, right? Like you're not having to.
Yeah,
lip sync.
sometimes it's synced and sometimes it's not. But the unsynced stuff is so much easier because I've done lip group stuff before, and that's a lot tougher.
And you still have to come to LA to do the loop stuff, right? You still got to do it here.
It depends. They have a studio, like I mentioned earlier. There's a DSL. There's an ISDN studio down the street that's about 15 minutes from here that they actually have the screen up and we can adjust accordingly if I have to sync anything.
Gotcha.
But sometimes they actually just send me the video and they say just sync it best you can, and I will. They're like, actually, that was really good. So
yeah, you can do that. And actually, in Adobe Audition, it's real easy to sync the video.
It is.
A couple other programs.
Yeah,
So we can teach you stuff too.
That's right.
All right.
Speaking of stuff that you use in your studio, what do you use in your studio?
Mostly my voice and mouth.
Good.
Very good starting point.
My tongue. My lungs are also very helpful. Actually, I have a very, very cheap setup. I have a Rode NTK2 mic with its own power supply. This really crappy antique called a Eurorec UB1202 standard analog mixer. And it plugs straight into the line in and line out jacks on my laptop. And people hear me on TV and in theaters all the time and never know it's recorded with this crappy setup and Audacity.
I hope nobody's watching this.
Yeah, really.
No, I mean,
too late.
But that's a prime example of. I mean, people get
Keeping
caught
it
up.
simple.
Yeah, I think it's being in. I think part of it's just being here in LA, just the keeping up with the Joneses aspect. When you're working in your own studio and you're insulated, not isolated so much. Well, isolated too, but
right. Same thing.
when you're insulated from that
you know.
environment, you're not sitting around measuring microphones with each other. You can really not get caught up in that. It's like he's a prime example of how you can get this awesome results because of your talent. And you know how to use a mic, and you can't get a much simpler setup than that.
It's all mic technique.
It's not the size of the boat; it's the motion of the ocean. You know what I'm saying?
I do. Yeah, all the folks in the chat room are probably cramming to ask some questions, and Anthony Gettig, our crack chat room monitor,
Our crackhead chat room monitor.
Well,
Let me tell you something, George Whittam. I smoke crack.
so Anthony, if anybody's got some questions, let's throw them out there here. Okay.
I know I see two of them
Yes.
so far.
Voice Scout asks, Do people do voice match demos and approach agents with those?
I actually was surprised that there was such a creature because I'd never heard of one before, and I'd always been told stay away from impressions on your demos, especially if the original voice actor or the original actor is still alive. They, that's like a slap in the face to Jim Cummings. When I do Winnie the Pooh, it's like saying I can do it better than him. So you don't want to do that. They've already got a Winnie the Pooh. They don't need to. So, but whenever you do a voice match demo, I talked to Chuck Duran from the EWABS Weekly about it, and he's like, actually, yeah, that would make total sense. And I talked to my agent. They're like, yeah, there's a few people who have those. You play a very short clip, the original voice, and you play one of you exactly behind it, and you have to sound exactly the same. And they're like, wow, this guy's good, or this guy's not good. So yeah, it's a thing. Who knew?
See, I wouldn't have thought of that. I would have thought the voice match would just be you doing all those voices, but I guess for the demo to be really useful, they want to hear the original so they can compare for themselves how close you are.
No question about it. Steve Gonzalez asks, what is your favorite Honest trailer? Or was already
I
asked?
Answered that one already.
Yes. I
beat you, Mr. Gonzalez.
Already asked as I'm reading it. Okay. The one and only Lee Pinney asks, would you do Carl, please?
It depends on what Carl you're talking about. The one from Jimmy Neutron?
Or the one from Sling Blade?
Do you think that's what he was asking about?
No, I like them both. Hello, llamas.
I do love llamas. He's probably talking about Carl from Sling Blade because I did that a lot at the at Voice 2014.
Oh, you did?
Sling Blade.
You gotta do that right there. I like bacon and mustard, and I get paid to do voices.
Actually did one. If you ever hear the CarMax commercial, there's me with I do two voices on that spot.
Yeah.
I played the vaguely European hairstylist. Said, Carl, what do you be doing your hair today? Yeah, so I did that one, and then Carl. So they actually I said, do you want something like Carl? Like, no, we want Carl. I'm like, okay.
What do you need, boss ma'am?
Yeah, and if somebody heard it on the radio, I was like, dude, I heard you on the radio. I'm like, yeah, it happens.
So Lee says, thank you, John. Sam
You're
Fleming,
welcome.
Samuel
I reckon I'm
Fleming,
going to kill you.
Samuel Fleming says, John, do you ever do any Jess Harnell voices?
Well, I do, but Jess Harnell's still alive, isn't he?
Yes.
No, I do. I love Jess. I have yet to get the chance to meet him. I keep missed him by that much. Like, that's a handful of voice actors I'm still trying really hard to meet. I've crossed off almost all of them off the list.
Yeah.
But Jim Cummings and Jess Harnell are hard to get on the same schedule with, apparently. So
yeah,
those are two I would love to meet.
I got to meet. I'll show off. I got to meet both of them because I was invited to Jim's 60th birthday, and Jess was there, so I got to meet Jess for the first time. I also got to meet there was Billy West.
Yeah,
Billy
and that's
great,
a bucket list guy for me to get to meet him. I'm still trying to get him on the show.
It's on our bucket list to get on our show.
Yeah, Paul and Paul. I'm sorry, Rob Paulson.
Rob Paulson.
Oh
Yeah.
man,
Rob's great too.
Yeah,
absolutely.
These guys are all fantastic talents.
Yeah.
There's another one from Devox.
Devox asks a great question here. Besides improv, which we all know is important, what do you do to warm up, work out, and prepare?
Well, to warm up, I usually stand in this booth for about 10 minutes.
Yeah, it seems to be doing
I seem to be sweating in all these areas here. Not so much here, but right here. No, I do a lot of singing. That always helps me. I sing for a few minutes to really loosen up the vocal cords. I also gargle water as high as I possibly can and as low as I possibly can. And then I'll do runs from up high. So I get over that little hump in the middle.
Yeah.
Because when you hear that, you'll hear that little. Once that's smoothed out, then you're warmed up and ready to go.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, someone in the chat room assumed that you must do some singing because your ear.
Yeah, I had a lot of
voice-
music theory in the background. I actually made first place at state with solos back in elementary school and high school and things. So yeah. Musical family, musical background. My dad plays 4 instruments or so.
Oh
like that.
yeah. I mean, music background I think is so helpful in so many ways in this industry. I mean, it gives you a great ear.
Yep.
The ear training and for what you're doing with doing the voice matching. Everybody I know that does voice matching is a
there's
musician.
a musicality in people's voices.
And it's there's certain certain rhythms and certain tempos and certain pitches, and people just don't realize that it's there. And when I've done several different voices that are all on the same pitch, and people say, oh, that's all the same voice. But then I show them the difference between it. Because there's a character,
Duke Nukem, he's got balls of steel. And then you take Keith David, who's got a totally different type of voice. 10,000 years ago, superstition in the sword world was an age of darkness. It was a time of gargoyles and an Optimus Prime. And the movie trailer voice, and they think it's all the same voice, but I have to point out the differences. Sometimes it's the staccato, sometimes it's tempo, sometimes it's the gravel, so yeah, there's lots of little tiny factors. Pat Fraley goes into great detail on the ins and outs and pieces of voices when you take them apart and dissect them.
Yeah.
And it makes it very easy to pluck out those things that help you sound like that person.
Yeah. Do you coach at all or teach at all? Or
I do entry level VO for beginners. There's a lot of Rick Zurich featured one of the trailers I did when I first started booking trailers. I did one for Book of Eli, and he liked it so much because he was one of those guys that like, wow, I found this guy on YouTube, and here he is doing trailers now. And they featured it on his website, and people started noticing. and I had a guy call me up and threaten me with jail time, saying that I was breaking union rules, and he would hate for my kids to grow up without a father because I went to prison. I'm like, excuse me, what did you say? So in my coaching sessions, I'm like, there's a few things that you might need to know about, so you won't get thrown by them whenever they happen to you. So there's a few things that I let them know about, some of the red tape that you have to go through, some of the the ins and outs, and people to avoid. The kind of people are like, give me $10,000 and I'll make you the next big voice actor. So,
right.
Magicians /
hypnotists
that want you to buy a book on that has nothing to do with voiceover whatsoever. But yeah. So yeah, and then I just give the ins and outs of basic equipment that you need to get started just to be able to do certain websites that you can do for very, very low budget, like voices.com. It's super cheap to get started just to have a little experience. So yeah, it's very basic stuff. I've only been doing this a little over 6 years. I've booked over 600 jobs in that amount of time. It'll be 6 years in next February, and so I don't really feel like I have the background and experience to really be a full-on coach and just coach on everything. But I think I've got enough to tell them the ins and outs on how to get started. So that's what I offer, and it's super cheap. It goes to charity. It goes to Autism Society of America. It's like $25 an hour. So.
Yeah. Well, see, I got a great idea. We have one last question, and I have a good idea. I guess somebody was talking.
I knew I smelled something burning.
Yeah, it's
How is it even possible if we have any ideas right now?
We find that we're actually we're more creative when we're tired. Voice Gal asks, do you do Steve Carell?
I did his for Despicable Me 2, but I didn't book it. I don't think I did quite good enough because his voice is very unique. There's some aspects of Steve Carell that I can do, and there's others that I can't. So it's just one of those things where it's hit and miss. And sometimes you sound good enough, and sometimes you sound perfect, and sometimes you just don't quite got it. So it's
the lovely and talented Reen Vogel asks, when's your next class, or better yet, can you come to do a weekend workshop in Nashville since it's not so far?
Pay for my gas, Reen, and I'll be there.
All right.
No, actually, it's not too bad of a drive. It's about 3.5 hours from here to Nashville. So I do plan on meeting up all my Nashville peeps because there's some good folks out there that I met at Voice 2014 too. So, but as far as my next class goes, I pretty much have an open schedule. I'm chained to this booth with the golden chain, as it were.
Right.
So I usually keep my mornings are fairly open because I'm on Pacific time work-wise, but I live in Central, so I have about a 2-hour cushion that I can coach on weekday mornings. So got to contact me.
All right. Well, why don't we take a break, do our friends at VoiceOver Extra, and then, John, I want you to stay on with us as we conclude the show and just sort of hang out. And you feel free to comment as we do our usual stuff here.
Sure.
I hope you'll stick around if you're still awake. You seem still rather.
Yeah. No, that's my problem. Anyway, we'll be right back here at East West Audio Body Shops. Don't go anywhere.
VoiceOver Extra, the voiceover industry's online news, education, and resource center 24/7. Hundreds, probably thousands of free how-to articles for voiceover success, ranging from home studio to voice acting to business. A free voiceover industry directory, calendar of industry events, resource links, a store, and much more. Bi-monthly webinars on all topics of voiceover, free subscriptions to newsletters, reports, announcements, daily news, and features at voiceoverextra.com.
Hey, honey, let's go grab a bite to eat.
I can't. I'm busy.
Are you hiding something?
No, I'm not.
What is so important on Monday evenings that you can't spend it with me?
Nothing?
Are you having an affair?
Yeah, okay. I was attracted to their smarts. I'm in love with their brains. They talk to me and are interested in what I have to say and what I do all day.
East West Audio Body Shop. No longer the best kept secret.
I didn't know you were into bald guys with mustaches.
We're back.
I was wondering about that one. Anyway,
you know what, John? We got to get you to. Will you do some drops for us? Some.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely,
dude. Yeah, if you're up for.
You're listening to Just the Tip with the Mustache of Knowledge.
Maybe we can come up with a couple lines.
Yeah,
Dan and I are gonna have some. Are we gonna have some dinner after this?
We are.
All right. Well, Dan and I have some dinner. We're gonna come up with a couple of liners for you to read when you get a chance in your 2-hour hole.
Yeah. If you can put up with
That's right, ladies. My hole's open for 2 hours.
Anyway, we got a few announcements that we want to talk about here, as we do every week. First, we need to thank our donors because they have been hefty and happy and healthy and giving.
They sure have, man. I mean, they're streaming.
I wouldn't have a liver without one.
Dude, they are streaming in right now. I mean, I think since you've gone on the air, we've had like 3 or 4 new donations.
Outstanding.
I kid you not. People love you, man.
Yeah.
Now, some of the donations we've had tonight include, we've got stuff coming from Brian Page. We've had stuff coming from Amanda Fellows.
Oh, Amanda.
Thank you, Amanda.
What a wonderful gal who unfortunately tried to call me on my cell phone and ended up calling my wife the other night.
Dum.
Jeez.
She didn't.
Did she? How did she answer Is Dan there?
Well, that's the way she sounds anyway.
Oh,
so
jeez.
it's kind of tough.
Is Dan there? He owes me child support. Is Dan there?
If your wife
owes me a mustache ride.
that might be why she made the donation and an apology. So thank you, Amanda. You're wonderful. We love you.
Eric Aragoni, dude, never misses an episode.
He doesn't.
Thank you.
Sunday afternoon is Eric Aragoni Day.
Man, I'll tell you, awesome.
We appreciate it.
Philip Sapir. Man, this is the most run this is the biggest run of donations we've had in a while.
You're now permanent on the show, John.
You're welcome.
You're a great fundraiser.
Jose Sarmiento. I think that's how you say his name.
Yeah.
Another sustaining donation. So thank you guys, all of you who have been making donations to keep the
That's
show
right,
going.
Drew. It's a new car. I could be your Wheel of Fortune guy.
We need one of those.
We actually do.
Can you just be our human sound effect machine?
Yeah.
It's just
Stay in
every
the
single
background
episode, you're just there and you make sounds. You just do drops, live drops.
Yeah.
I don't think we could afford you, but someday.
All right.
You get a good donation.
Yeah, really. What else we got going on here?
I don't know.
Back to the announcements here. Okay. Clickers.
Do we still have clickers?
I think I have a few, and I think that there's a few out there. We're almost out of them. I don't know if we need to do another run of them.
We're phasing out the clickers. We're going to come up with
I use one of them to change my TV channels.
yes.
Yeah, well, they're actually coming. So make sure that watch your mail. They'll be dropping by one of these days. Let's see, September 29th, one of our bestest buddies.
Yep.
Mark Cashman will be joining us all the way from Santa Clarita. Boy, it's going to be so much fun being so close to all these people.
I know.
And they seem to enjoy the idea that I'm going to be close to them when their cleaning lady knocks some dial in their studio, and I don't have to come 2,500 miles to turn the dial back.
Exactly.
So Mark will be here. He's got a new book out called VOH.
By Cashman.
The Cashman. Yeah.
Nice.
I swear to God, I was on National Grid's. I was paying an electric bill, and I keep hearing this voice, and I'm like, "It's Mark Cashman. It's Mark Cashman." I asked him, he says, "Yeah, I wish it was, but no." But
I get that a lot too.
To it. Anyway, I'll have to ask him that again. October 6th, a guy who was on the show a while back and was just fabulous, and he's even more fabulouser now. Fabulouser, yes. Anthony Mendez. Voiceover narrator, character on the new WB channel show starting October 13th. This flies. He's just like...
He's taunting you.
Get that salt gun.
He's just like landing in front of us and going...
I need that salt gun.
Exactly. Let's see, what else do we need to tell you about? Please like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at EWABS_show and subscribe and like our videos, because there are a voluminous amount of EWABS videos on YouTube.
Yeah, on Twitter, I've started doing a chain of posts of past shows to kind of remind you guys some of the old stuff in the library. John. And so if you want to kind of be, just get a little auto feed of some stuff that comes out every few days, subscribe on Twitter and you'll get a fun feed of old things.
Uh-oh. Now I'm getting dizzy.
So if anybody's wondering if John does Jabba the Hutt, yes. Yes, he does.
Yes. Oh, sure. I sense many EWABS essentials coming out of this one.
Absolutely.
A bad feeling about this.
and if you're not watching it live with us, which you should be, because it's way more freaking fun. The chat room is a lot of a blast. It's more interactive. If you can't watch it live, we get it. And, you're going to watch these on YouTube.
Right.
YouTube.com/EWABS show, all one word run together. And if you're an audio kind of person and you don't really want to look at some of these crazy looking voice actors we have on the show, and you just want the audio version, just tune in on the podcast version. It's on podbean.com, ewabs.podbean.com. It's on Stitcher. It's on iTunes. Just type in EWABS anywhere you get your podcasts. You'll probably find it.
For those of you who know habla español, the EWABS in Spanish is El EWABS.
Could have used you this afternoon when I was talking to my new gardener. Anyway, listen to the podcast. This is our 158th episode. Who would have thought that after episode number 1 or 2?
Rolls off the tongue.
It does, doesn't it?
John, you just make me want to talk like the trailer guy.
Yeah.
Don't quit your day job.
If you take one of my jobs, I'm coming after you with a salt gun.
You can kill my flies.
Anyway.
Have you ever met Pablo Francisco, by the way?
No, I haven't. But that's actually my first introduction to the movie trailer voice. My brother's like, dude, you should listen to this. I bet you could do this better. And he's like, he's doing Don LaFontaine. And I started listening to it. I was like, no, he's not. He's not doing Don LaFontaine.
Yeah, it's an impression.
He took Hal Douglas.
Yeah.
And he took Don LaFontaine because
you take Hal Douglas and Cloudy with the chance of meatballs and Don LaFontaine's hard-edged to merge them together to Little Tortilla Boy.
That's what he did. He just merged two together.
Yeah, exactly.
In the city, you must fight to survive.
I think he still do. I mean,
he still does that same bit 30 years later. He's still doing that same joke.
I got to work on it. I got to work in his home because he wanted a home studio for doing radio spots and doing VO work. So I got to work with him, and he's quite wacky.
He is.
Yeah, but
he's in voiceover.
Just a really quick little story, and then at the very, very, very end, we're going to play a little June Foray clip of a couple things that she's done
in loving memory.
Yeah, I know.
She's
June
not
is still
dead.
alive. She's still alive
kicking.
and kicking. She's 97 and still working. Jeez. But anyway, we'll let that go in the end. But you totally screwed up my train of thought. Forget it. Not even worth going there at this point. But anyway.
Pablo Francisco
was where your last left off.
Yeah. No, but Pablo called me the day after Don died. And he said, is it really true? And he's telling me he's like, I got to work with Don and this and Don, and then he cut into Don's voice. And he keep switching back and forth from Pablo voice to Don voice. And it was just on a phone. It was pretty close, and it was eerie.
I was gonna say it was probably kind of spooky.
It was spooky,
Yeah.
and Don would call me all the time and never ever say it's Don, because it's Don. So the second you hear Don, you know it's Don.
George, I need you in my studio.
It's exactly what he would say. Exactly.
I need one man on one mission to fix my audio problems. This summer, George Whittam is the fixer. The PG-13 starts writing these everywhere.
It would be more like, I can't figure out how to burn a flipping DVD with this freaking DVD player. You know, that's the kind of stuff.
Rated R.
Yeah, rated R. But it was creepy. Anyways,
Yes.
shall we leave us with this little June
I
clip?
think we should. John, thanks for being with us tonight. You're just what I needed tonight.
Just what I needed. Thank you very much. I appreciate being on.
Thank you.
That's one off my list. Now VOBuzz Weekly is next.
Yes, I guarantee you will be a great guest and will be invited on VOBuzz Weekly in the near future.
Yeah. We should
Looking forward to it when it happens. But yeah, it's been really fun. I'm a huge fan, first time caller. You remember that one time when you talked to that one guy about audio stuff? That was cool.
Thank you, man.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Oh, and
man.
check out my YouTube channel, John ZON3PND0. I appreciate it very much.
You got it, man. I've had it on the lower third on the bottom of the screen.
All right.
Almost the whole show, dude. So thanks again.
All right, man. We're all just particles, man. You're spinning around, breathing the same atmosphere, brother. It's all good. We'll talk to you later.
All right, man. Have a good night, dude.
You too. Bye.
Cheers. Oh, dude, I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
God, can you imagine being in the same house with him?
No, we gotta.
It was weird enough when we were hanging out with him.
Actually, when he said my wife, I was like, what? You have a wife?
She is patient.
She is patient, yeah.
Absolutely. Anyway, June Foray, happy 97th.
Happy 97th birthday to you, June. We'd love to have you back on again to celebrate your 98th birthday.
And 99th.
And 99th, if we can have you back. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
I'm Dan Leonard in the East.
I'm George Whittam in the West.
And together we are East-West Audio Body Shop. Bye, everybody.
Good night. Oops.
Oh, smooth.
Smooth. I had
Mr. Smoothie.
Yes.
The Smoothinator.
Mr. Smoothinator.
A lot of us have taken, seminars on doing animation voices. How do you create a voice?
Well, my mother and father were very intelligent people. They'd take us to plays, and they'd take us to the movies, and to all kinds of entertainment things, operas. And when I was 6 years old, I told them I wanted to be an actor because I could mimic them all. I would listen to some of the voice or the actual actors, and I would impersonate them. And so when I was 12 years old, I worked in radio, WBZ, in Springfield, Mass. And that was, it was a subsidiary of WBZ in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And I just did a couple of shows when I was 12. When I was 15, I had the hubris to call the station manager and say, look, I can do all these voices. Would you let me be on every week? And they consented to it. And that's how I started in radio.
Chutzpah does it every time.
Whatever it is.
That's right. Exactly. What was the most challenging voice you ever did?
Gee, I don't think I've ever worried about it. I don't think I've ever had anything. If people say do this, I do it. Well, and so I got to the home Les Paul.
Oh, Les Paul. Oh, yeah. Bennett overdubbing.
He had a studio in his garage on Curzon Street.
Mm-hmm.
And I went there at a certain time, and I looked at the script, and I had to sing. It was, the song, These Foolish Things.
Okay, yeah.
This was a takeoff that checkered fanciers without no seat in them tumbleweeds that had no something in it. But anyway, it was a Marjorie Main voice, with a Western accent. There's a lot of things I like about you too that stuck in my heart crossways, but it was a takeoff on these foolish things.
Oh, okay. I love Spike Jones. Actually, I have to thank my dad for that. He loved Spike Jones, and I listened. He had cassette tape dubs of the records.
Long career, and we know you, and you're going to continue doing this. I think until you just feel like you can't talk anymore, and I think that's probably going to be never. But what? And a lot of people have been asking this one. What would you like your legacy to be with this business? Because you are this business as far as a lot of us are concerned. You're the mother of all of us for all this. But what would you like your legacy to be? How would you like to be everyone to remember you as in this business?
As a kind, thoughtful person who helps other people and the environment. I like simplicity. I am what I am. I'm very simple. All these laudatory things I've been listening to, it's almost embarrassing because I've just done what I could do and what I wanted to do.